The World Islands in Dubai, built by Nakheel Properties back in the early 2000s using land reclamation and costing over $13 billion. There are over 300 islands in this project, most of which remain completely undeveloped. They are divided roughly into continents and kind of follow the world map. So I wanted to take a zoom in on all of these islands and see if there's any developments going on, what new things are happening, and if we can find anything interesting. Let's explore. All right, we're going to start off with the Greenland section, and we moved over to Apple Maps because we can see a lot more clear. When we need to, we'll go back to Google Maps or Google Earth to see the historic imagery. Greenland is this whole section right here. It looks like they were using the Mercator projection when they built this because Greenland is about the same size as Africa, as it does show in the Mercator projection, but that's not what reality is. Anyways, when we zoom in on Greenland, you can see that almost all of these islands are completely undeveloped, except one of them, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's zoom in on a random one, like Nuuk. This is the capital of Greenland, and when you zoom in all the way, you can see it's just sand and some bushes at this point. We're back over to Google Earth so we can look at historic imagery, but the only structures I can find outside of this one island are up here on this island called Cape Morris. There seems to be a new dock that was built. If you go back in historic imagery just in September of 2024, it's not there, but as of April 2025, it is there. The only island that's got stuff going on is right here on Upernavik Island, which is known as Michael Schumacher Island. Yeah, it's the same Michael Schumacher that was the 7-time Formula One world champion from Germany. And he was gifted this island by the Crown Prince of Dubai right around the time of the island's completion, way back in 2006 as a retirement present. This resort was one of the first actual builds on all of these islands. It has a large helipad on the northwest side, a large dock down here for yachts, a small golf course hidden in there, it has a pool over here, a huge luxury house, and then its own facilities on the northeast side. Here's imagery from 2001. In the next image we can see all the islands was 2009, and as you can see, none of the islands have really anything going on except this one. But today this is a private island and it doesn't seem like you can come rent it out or that you can come stay here at a hotel. So this island is off limits. All right, let's look at the next section, North America. Many of these islands follow the names of US states or Canadian provinces and territories or Central American countries. But similar to Greenland, there's really nothing going on in the vast majority of these islands. Of course, there's people putting silly pictures and random restaurants that aren't there. Like, of course, Ohio Island has that. Let's see what kind of pictures they put. Okay, yeah, this is weird stuff. People just put random memes on here. And that's to be expected for a place called Ohio Island. Now you may be asking, what is this huge island on the left side? Well, this is called Coral Island, and it doesn't seem like it's named after a real place, especially in this area. I looked all over for a coral island that kind of fits there west of North America, but nothing seems to fit. This island is currently owned by Nakheel Properties, and it seems like they're going to develop it, but no progress has been made since at least 2009. The only developments I can see are on the north part of Coral Island, where there seems to be some kind of road, but this has really not changed at all since way back then. This is it in 2009, and then before that you can't really see anything. So who knows when this island's actually going to be built. I also found it interesting that a lot of these places are named after huge Canadian provinces, and then one of them is named Coates Island, and there's also Prince Charles Island, but this one right here is Coates Island. Looks pretty interesting, but yeah, that's a relatively small island to have a whole world island named after it, but it's pretty cool. Next, we'll move on to the South America continent. And as you might notice, Apple Maps is a little more outdated than the current Google Maps imagery, so there are going to be discrepancies that we'll see here. Anyways, most of these northern islands are undeveloped, but the southern islands actually have a lot of new stuff going on for them. Seems like in the past year, a wall has been built around some of these islands, and the islands of Uruguay and Sao Paulo have been combined. Just going back to September of 2024, these islands were pretty much completely undeveloped and separated, and now they've been connected with a bunch of new construction equipment on them and new docks. The island of Buenos Aires has also been being developed. As of at least 2022, they built a new compound, it looks like, with a big fence, but nothing really new has happened since then. The Uruguay and Sao Paulo Island is now known as Amelie Island. It's being developed by billionaires who are building 24 beachfront villas, and it seems like each of them are going to sell for about $13 million. That's kind of typical for a lot of these islands and the villas. It's definitely not cheap, and most of these islands are only for luxury resorts. Coming out of Chile, there's also new developments. Even since 2023, a lot of new stuff has been built, so it looks like a new resort is going on here. And then there's Coronation Island and Clarence Island down here. This is where the Anantara World Island resorts are being built. There's gonna be 70 rooms, all beach villas. And I looked into it, looks like it starts at around $450 per night to stay at one of these, which is obviously a lot of money for a hotel, but not as bad as I was thinking for the World Islands. And if you're wondering where Coronation Island and Clarence Island are, they're way down here in the South Orkney Islands. That's where Coronation Island is. And then if you come way over here, right next to Elephant Island, you can find Clarence Island as well. I wonder who decided to name those islands after these islands in particular. Oh yeah, just to get a sense of where we are, we're only a couple kilometers from the main part of Dubai and only a few kilometers from the Palm Jumeirah as well. The same people who built these Nakheel Properties also built the World Islands. There's no way to drive to the World Islands. There's no bridge there. You have to take a boat or a helicopter to get here. Anyways, let's move on to Antarctica next. I zoomed in all through Antarctica. There's really only two things I could find. There's a dock way down here in the south part with a little tiny hut. And then way up here in the north part, there's also a dock that was recently built. You can't see it on Apple Maps. On Google Earth and the historic imagery, you can see it right here with a little boat pulled up to it. Next up, we have Africa, and this is by far the most undeveloped part of all of the world islands. There's really nothing going on any of these islands right now that I can see. No new developments, except down here in South Africa. There is a few small buildings with a small dock here, but none of these other islands really seem to have anything and are still waiting to be developed. If you're wondering why a lot of these islands are not developed at all, despite them costing millions, if not billions of dollars for all of these, well, one of the big reasons was the world islands were completed right around the time of the 2008 world financial crisis, which shot real estate prices down the drain. And that was terrible timing for new properties to be developed on here. So for over 15 years, a lot of these islands sat completely undeveloped, and only in the past couple of years have new things been starting to pop up, like what we'll get to soon, the heart of Europe over here, which is by far the most developed part of the entire world islands. And a lot of these islands completely lack any amenities. Just zooming in on a random one like Libya, besides bringing a boat here every day, there's no way to get fresh water, fresh food, and the islands are built off of reclaimed seabed, which makes it difficult to build here. Plus, the islands are slowly sinking into the ocean, like 5 millimeters a year, which does cause some concerns of people wanting to develop stuff here. But there's obviously a lot more reasons why they're not being developed, and a lot of other YouTubers go more in depth about that. All right, let's jump into Europe, by far the most developed part of the world islands. And right here, we have what's called the heart of Europe. This was built in the last few years, and I was reading up about it. It's pretty cool. There's 6 different main parts of it, some of which are almost completely built and some of which are still under development. But there's one part called Main Europe, which is based off of Rome and Vienna, and there's apartments for sale, there's clubs, cafes, hotels there. There are studio apartments for sale for around 250,000 US dollars, it seems like, and 1-bed apartments for about 2 to 3 times that. I'll link the site down in the description. It goes over a lot of these islands, but this is Sweden Island, which has 10 4-story palaces, each with infinity pools, elevators, glass roof nightclubs. These are far outside the price range for the vast majority of us. There's Switzerland Island, which is going to have artificial snow apparently. Floating Venice, which is going to be an underwater vessel resort with 414 cabins. And over here, we have St. Petersburg Island, which is going to have 131 floating seahorse villas as well. It's also called Honeymoon Island because it's shaped like a heart if you look at it the right way. If we zoom back on historic imagery, you can see how much development has happened in the past few years. As of 2021, a lot of stuff was being built. Back in 2018, there was still a lot of work to be done. And in 2014, there's almost nothing on these islands. So this is a new up and coming area that should be pretty cool. But it's also very expensive for the average person to stay at. Hey, maybe one of these places will sponsor me and I'll get to go visit it and show you guys on the channel, but we'll see. Oh yeah, if you come to this area right here and go to February 25th, 2022, you can see a plane flying in the sky right next to the heart of Europe. So I thought that was pretty cool. And you can see what appears to be these floating villas that are over here. They actually move over time. Seems like they moved them up to this bay. All right, next we'll take a look at Central Asia. And the main thing that's here is on Lebanon Island. This is what's called the island Dubai. And it's a smaller island, but it seems pretty cool. And it's actually one of them that's the most affordable, it seems like. On their website, it looked like you can come here for the day for around $81 per person, and there's a beach club. This is one of the first islands that were developed here as well, around 2012, after Michael Schumacher Island, but before a lot of the heart of Europe. And this one overall looks pretty chill and pretty fun to go visit. So this is probably the most realistic one to go visit if you're in Dubai and you're on a budget and you don't have thousands of dollars to spend on some of these. A lot of the rest of Central Asia and a lot of Asia is pretty much completely undeveloped. There's interestingly Mount Everest Island right here, which is pretty cool. But yeah, a lot of the rest of it has nothing going on. Getting to the northern parts of Asia, there's a couple cool islands. There's Novaya Zemlya up here, which I've looked at on this channel before. And then when you get way up here, you find that, oh, something is actually going on. Looks like in the Chukotka area, but this is what's called Zuha Island. The website says that Zuha means morning light in Arabic, so it doesn't seem like this is actually named after an island in the east part of Siberia. Coming to 2025, you can see that there's a lot more development. Let's just go back just a couple years. Even in 2022, there's almost nothing on this island, and today there are hundreds of little villas. In fact, there's 29 residential villas and 70 resort villas. There's options for 1, 2, 3, 4, and 8 bedrooms. Looks like this is a concept photo of what it's planning on looking like. And while it's not as green as that is yet, it looks pretty similar to what that is. So I'm excited to see what this ends up looking like, as this is one of the newest developments. Okay, let's move on to Oceania next. And out here, there's really no buildings right now, but there is a project underway to build a resort by Oqyana. I don't know how to pronounce that, but they do plan on making a resort here in Australia and New Zealand, and I think part of Southeast Asia. So that could be interesting. The Rolled Islands aren't without their controversies as well. Obviously, land reclamation at this scale causes huge ecological consequences. I mean, you're literally digging up the seabed and moving it to somewhere else, which disturbs marine life all over here. Also, these islands are worth millions of dollars each, and a lot of these hotels and villas are for guests who already have a lot of money. Dubai's spending a lot of their money developing these luxury resorts way out here in the ocean, instead of focusing on other parts of Dubai. This seems to be what Dubai's plan for the last 20, 30 years has been. Increase their tourism industry and diversify their economy from just oil to tourism and other stuff. Thanks for watching. Let me know how you liked this style of video where we look at the Rolled Islands and if we should do anything similar. Next week I plan on looking at Big Diomede Island on Google Maps and seeing what kind of weird stuff we can find on there, including an old plane crash that you can still see in the island today and a bunch of mysterious buildings. So we'll be looking at that next week. Check if you're subscribed and subscribe if you want to, and see you guys later.